Hi there. I'm going to be talking about how I believe that it's important for us to begin mental health in schools much earlier than what we presently have. I spoke to a couple of teachers that I work with, and they'd spoken about how that the school system in Kentucky will allow that, and they call it mindfulness for children, and it starts off in like kindergarten, like a very early age. What I have found is that students and even adults all throughout their life will need mental wellness. So I suggest, and my idea is that we should really have that curriculum all throughout a student's life, even in college, because it is important for us to stay on top of our emotional, mental wellness. I've done a few checks on articles just to back up what I'm saying, and I read in TED Talks from May 23rd of 2018. It's called How to Love Yourself to the Core by Jen Oliver. She had talked about in that YouTube video that she really had experienced like people pleasing, and it stemmed from when she was a child, how she wanted to be in music, and her father just absolutely said that that was the worst idea possible. Now, the crazy thing about it was her father was also a musician, but he just said you can't make a living out of that, and so it discouraged her. These discouragements that we put into our children, our coworkers, our siblings, our families, just all together, our preconceptions of things, mold the minds of people around us, including students. My perfect example was, imagine that you've not only moved to a new school, right, and you meet all new people, but also you have a new house. You've got to learn where everything is and get in new habits, eating at a new area. Maybe it's the same table that you had at your old house, but now you're in a new surrounding. Different furniture may be there, such as, maybe your appliances are different. The arrangement of the house is probably more than likely different. It could be smaller or it could be larger. And these changes aren't huge just to think about moving. But when you add on everything else that comes along with that, it can cause a lot of stress. You don't know what the expectations will be when you go to school. You don't know if the people there will like you. Maybe you've lost your best friend from the place that you lived at before. Maybe you were on one of the school functions at your old school, and now they don't have it at the new school. Your whole life has changed. I also read another article or watched another article, and it was, again, from TED Talks 2019, My Journey to Self-Love, Dr. Andrea Pennington. She had went through a lot of trauma also in her life, and she didn't learn to love herself. She didn't like her authentic self. We're not taught that in school. I know I've done a speech already about not having finances taught in school, but ultimately I feel like this mental health course that we could do, or curriculum that we could do for the school system, would work tremendously and help a lot of people. Maybe it doesn't have to have a psychologist on the site for every school, but maybe you could have one. And I believe they do have some that come in, honestly, already. So this would just be added, something that they could do if they're needed. But maybe it's also something that we could do here and learn as our curriculum to add into that futuristic type of learning. I also looked at the statistics, and The National Center of Education Statistics from April 2022, that article talked about how after 2 years after COVID-19 pandemic, in the U.S., there was 69% of public schools reported an increase in mental health concerns among students. So that shows you that, especially now, but I believe it should have been used all along. It's something that we need to teach children, students, adults, no matter what age, all throughout their career as a student, how to take care of their mental health. I also looked up an article from National Academic of Medicine, and that article talked about depression and childhood trauma. So let's just not only think about just moving. What if your family was totally broken apart and everything as you knew it changed? In this particular article that I read, her name was Leah. It says depression and childhood traumas, Leah's story. As I was watching this, it talked about how Leah had lost both of her parents, and she was adopted by her aunt and her uncle, but she still suffered from mental illness. I just feel like it's so important. So in closing, let me just mention, it is important to take care of our mental health and to embrace individuality. It's okay to be different. That's what we're made to be, is different. So let's embrace it. Let's teach the future students of America and Kentucky how to behave in a well way to take care of ourselves and take care of others.